with Mr. Torres absent.
Mr. Torres is absent. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Randall, will you go ahead?
Madam Chairman, the first item on the agenda is consider approval of the 2016-2017 student course selection catalog. And Ms. Hack and Ms. Vogt will take and will give you an overview of the changes and answer any questions that you all may have. As you're aware, this catalog is really designed to provide information for students when they start making selections for their courses for the upcoming school year.
The course selection catalog is essentially the same as last year. On the inside cover, you would have received the major additions and deletions to the catalog. These are highlighted in yellow throughout. They fall into 6 essential categories. They are either clarifying statements, there was a nomenclature change, those are minor, changes in admin regs, which help us to enforce or execute board policy. There are TEA requirements or HB5 or college board requirements. So that's one category in and of itself. The 5th type of change is a name of a program has been changed, and number 6 is a new course has been added to the course catalog. I have passed around a copy of the HB5 clusters and the categories that they fall under just for your reference. This particular HB5 document applies to students who are freshmen and sophomores currently. Our juniors and seniors are still falling under the 4x4 system of the past for graduation.
Are there any questions?
I have a few questions. And I hope that the first one, because I guess it's multifaceted, I can explain it. For 7th and 8th grade students who are receiving high school credit for the class and are also, the GPA is also being counted. I'm going to use my son as an example. In the 7th and 8th grade, he took Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. He, because of the level that it's in junior high, that's considered an advanced course, even algebra or geometry. What I'm wondering though is, and I didn't see it in here, perhaps I just missed it. In high school, those courses have a multiplier, but in junior high, they do not, although they're considered advanced for that age.
Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 pre-AP is not offered, whether you take it as a 7th grader, 8th grader, or 9th grader.
I'm sorry, is not what?
It's not weighted. It's not at the pre-AP level. Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. The pre-AP starts at the level 3 foreign language, and then of course you can elect to take the AP in the 4th year of language. So whether you start Spanish 1 as a 7th grader, 8th grader, or 9th grader, it's an unweighted course.
Okay, so currently, although it reads as a pre-AP class in 7th or 8th grade, it's an unweighted course?
It's not at the pre-AP level, no, but I believe when you say that it's accelerated, they're beginning their foreign language sooner than the average student. They
Right.
normally start in 9th grade. But Algebra 1, as an 8th grader, that is pre-AP. It's Algebra 1 pre-AP.
Okay, so I guess my question is, for 7th grade or 8th graders currently, if they're taking Spanish 1 in junior high, it's considered a pre-AP course currently.
It's academic. It's at with the 1.1.
Okay, I guess all of the schedules that I looked at, all of them say that they're pre-AP.
I'm checking just to verify.
Okay.
Getting to, yes, on page 70. That is the junior high. And so it's Spanish 1 academic, Spanish 2 academic, and that's the same if you started Spanish 1 or 2 in 9th grade or
Okay.
10th grade. But level 1 and level 2 in the foreign languages is all at the academic level.
Regardless of where you take them.
Yes, and then pre-AP, so a lot of the students who take Spanish 1 and 2 in junior high, they start Spanish 3 pre-AP as freshmen, and then they'll take the AP Spanish 4 as sophomores, and a lot of them will elect to take the 5, which we now offer their junior year. It's a ability for them, if they're good in the languages, to accelerate to get to the AP level. And then now that we have the endorsement, the LOAD endorsement, a lot of them will start a foreign language in junior high and then pick up a second language in high school. And it'll fit in their schedule.
Okay, and I guess the reason that I called it advanced is because these kids have to make a certain score in their reading and English to be able to get into a Spanish course, or at least that's the case at Bristow and Foster. So I consider it advanced, considering their age and that a lot of other kids are waiting until they're freshmen to take it.
It's a recommended criteria that they demonstrate strength in those particular areas in order to attempt a foreign language in a junior high, because it is a little bit more difficult and rigorous to start at that young. So there is some baseline criteria they look at. If you're struggling in, let's say, 6th grade English, starting Spanish 1 may not be the best recommendation for that student.
Sure.
We need to strengthen those English skills, and then 9th grade would be a great starting point. And then if they are still continuing perhaps to struggle, Spanish might not be the best choice of languages, and that's where the counseling comes into
Sure.
play.
Well, I guess my concern is that if we're going to weight these the same in junior high as they are in the 9th and 10th grade, for example, Spanish 1 or 2, the kids really don't have an incentive. We could give them 2 more years to mature and learn more study habits before we give them a class like that, where they could technically maybe get a better grade in 9th and 10th grade. Is that a choice that we have as a district, or is that a state wide policy, the way that we weight these, or?
The content of the course and not the age of the child when they're taking it is the primary consideration when a course is weighted. And so even though a student may be a 7th grader taking Spanish, the incentive lies in, is this an interest level? And is it a commonly available subject area, particularly for the place and time? And so Spanish is obviously a commonly offered course at the junior high level. What has changed over probably the last decade is offering high school credit for it. Now, the incentive actually lies in, if you take this many years of foreign language and you get high school credit for it, it opens up other options for you when you become a high school student in actuality, when you become a freshman. And so we see that many of our more aggressive students who really want to keep all of those options open will pursue it earlier, plus the option of being able to take Spanish 5 as well, which has been added to a lot of high school curriculums at this point in time, even, in all honesty, even prior to the Spanish 5. So we really encourage that interest, because it takes that many years, obviously, to really develop fluency in another language. So.
In regards to math, what did you say that it is, if they take algebra as 7th graders and then geometry as 8th graders, did you say that that is a weighted course?
Algebra 1 in junior high is Algebra 1 pre-AP. So it's at the 1.2 weight.
And geometry is the same?
When junior high kids were taking geometry, but right now, as soon as the junior high kids take Algebra 1 is at the 8th grade level.
So there is not a weighted,
Algebra 1 pre-AP is offered 8th grade, just Algebra 1 pre-AP.
And it is weighted.
It is weighted.
and it is weighted.
1.2.
And was it weighted, is this the first year that it's weighted, that now that it's offered in pre-AP, as opposed to last year when it wasn't offered in a pre-AP form? Do you know?
I don't know. I'd have to
Okay.
look. Yes.
A few of the parents have posed these questions over the last few weeks, wondering if there was a specific class that has a learning curve where we didn't have that pre-AP course. However, geometry and algebra were being taken by 7th and 8th graders, and parents are afraid that they should have just probably encouraged their children to wait till the 9th grade for that weighted.
Yes, that was probably a big learning curve, I agree with you there, but the current 9th graders this year, they're the first group in which any course they took in junior high counts
Right.
in their class rank.
And that's why they're
that was my
concerned about that
question.
learning
Yeah.
curve.
Because that's changed, correct?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
it didn't used to be. It used to be that
Right.
if you took things in junior high, all you got was the credit, but not the grade,
It didn't factor into your GPA.
didn't factor in your
Yes.
GPA.
Came with
This
the
is-
credit, but not
And,
that.
and I think that that's what parents are concerned about, is the fact that it's factoring into the GPA, but perhaps wasn't weighted. For example, myself, I may have just encouraged my son to have waited until the 9th grade before taking that course, because he could make a much better grade with that weighted 1.2 today than he did taking that class last year. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. My understanding, the students that took Algebra 1 in junior high, it was because they were on the math track to take the accelerated math to get to calculus, which is an AP course, so those kids tended to take more pre-AP, AP math courses by starting in junior high. Had more, they could take AP stats, it just
Right.
freed it up.
And I understand all that, but at the end of the day, these kids are still accelerated
Yes.
kids in comparison to their peers who are taking 8th grade math, per se.
And this year, it is Algebra 1 pre-AP, so they are getting the 1.2.
So they
weight.
do, but perhaps we had 1 year of a learning curve. Will we do anything to go back to fix that for those kids?
That is something I'll make a note of and look into. Okay. There's, again, I don't know, let me look because I wasn't familiar with junior high last year, being at the high school. But we offered Algebra 1 pre-AP at the high school level for the first time last year. So it may have very well been, if they were taking it in the 8th grade last school year, it was Algebra 1 pre-AP as well. That's what I need to check on.
And the other thing is, I've seen a few of the schedules of some of the kids, and their Spanish does say pre-AP. So I'm gonna go back and look at those and make sure I wasn't looking at something different, and if so, I'll
Is
bring
that
it.
for this school
For
year?
this school year.
Okay.
Which is why I was asking.
And I know there's been some confusion.
It may have been a campus.
The campus, because prior to this school year, all courses in junior high, the core content and the low classes had the pre-AP next to them. And now we have that separated
Right.
between academic and pre-AP.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll mention it to you once I take a look at
Okay,
it
and I'll look
again.
into that.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I did have a couple other questions, but I told you that one was multifaceted.
It was.
So,
Okay.
I'm concerned about the, obviously, the amount of classes that we are offering. And this is probably going to get Dr. Bowen's attention, but currently, we're required to have certified teachers certified in all these subjects. As a district or as campuses, are we taking measures to make sure that we help teachers become certified in a lot of these? And if so, what are we doing?
It's part of the staffing process with your staff.
And I'm gonna say, I have, I don't know that I have what you have, I have what's in the book, just the changes. So, some of the certifications will be, first of all, composite certifications.
Mhm.
Thank you, yeah, if you can turn your machine. So they'll be addressed based on that, and then some of them will be add-on certifications. You have one?
And when you, the course catalog, a lot of the teachers in these endorsement areas, because that's where a lot of the new classes are coming on, they are aware because they are the ones that are submitting them and helping us build out the endorsements. So they're looking ahead to see what the certifications are, and that is what the campus administrators work with them on. To teach this course next year, you have this certification, you may need this certification. So we kind of operate 6 to 8 months out.
Okay.
And some of the CATE courses, their certification stands as is, but they have to do specialized training, and they get notification of that and time for that to happen.
And as a district, are we offering anything additionally to try to help in some of this, or are we just saying to the teachers, go out on your own and do this? What are,
We have not offered anything. We do in some areas such as ESL and things like that, but for the HB5 courses, we have not, because it's not been an issue, because so many of our certificates are composite type certificates that cover a lot of
That will
areas.
cover a lot of
So
it.
for example, if you're certified in the sciences, there are a lot of different fields under that, and those fields are related specifically to the clusters you see on that chart. So if I'm certified in a certain type of computer technology or computer science or whatever, then I have the certification to engage as an instructor in each one of those fields, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Now, we do have a really aggressive program for certifying our ELL teachers, our English language learner teachers. That's funded through Title III, which are federal funds. Basically, we provide them with training sessions for ESL in preparation for their certification, and we also pay for the certification when they pass the test.
With your certification.
Oh, okay. I think a lot of what I'm hearing from the parents is a concern that we're going to just put warm bodies in there. That's what I want to clarify, and I also want to know if there is something that comes up that would help some of these teachers become certified in some of these areas. I'd like to hear about it, perhaps to see if the district could invest in some of those programs, very similar to the ELL.
They are not going to be able to teach a class that they are not certified for. So if that's a concern, this lady doesn't let us do that. So.
Dr. Bowen has her work cut out for her.
If it helps, I'll give an example, like our criminal justice endorsement. The teacher's teaching criminal law enforcement 1. Her certification allows her to teach a law enforcement 2 and then the 2 advanced classes as well. Until we teach the advanced classes, she may want to teach the forensic science class, which is the science that goes with law enforcement, and the kids like to take that. She will also have the composite science certification. So when you look at what they want to teach, you look at their certs, and they're pretty savvy. They know because they want to teach those classes.
Sure.
And so then we work with them on that.
Thank you, ladies. That was all my questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just looking at the grading system, what was the thought, or is this something through the state that we deleted the D? And now, because when it's now, the C is 70 to 79, do we ever use the new, the letter grade for anything anyway? No.
The letter.
Well, it's the
grade.
grading system, and it now has under C 70 to 79, and then,
Yes.
so is that?
The numeric system, it best informs your parents, but college and universities look strictly at the letter. And so an A is 4 points, a B is 3 points, a C is 2 points, a D, or, well, below that.
So we have deleted the
0
D in
points.
our, so that the kids are at least getting the 2 points?
Well, it makes it more consistent with the rest of the majority of the state of Texas.
That's what I'm asking you.
and
Are we
nationally.
aligning ourselves with other
Yes.
districts, and is this, okay.
When they
That-
compete for academic scholarships or entry into colleges and universities, if you get a 74
Or
under the
below.
old system, you got 1 point. So you're competing against the majority of the nation for GPA points in your college apps, where a 74 would have given them 2 points.
Okay, all right.
Their transcripts, and their 6 weeks grades and transcripts is all numerical, and everybody looks for that 70 or above. And then, like she said, the colleges weight them based on what the district says is an A, B, C, or F.
Well, that's what I thought, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure this was
Yeah.
thought
Makes
about.
sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, the next item on the agenda is ratification of quarterly investment reports. The board has had an opportunity to see this report each month, and we'll ask any questions if you may have any. The next item on the agenda is consider approval of budget amendment request. And we have several budget amendment requests this month. And And I can either go down through these, or I can actually just respond to any questions that the board may have to these. If Ms. Ludwig would just kind of give a general overview of, you're seeing a number of these transfers occurring, or budget amendments occurring this month, because CPAs have to have things aligned a certain way in order to prepare for an audit, so I'll let you.
We're completing fiscal year.
That's it, that's correct.
Yes, all of these have to do with transition from the 14-15 year to the 15-16 year. Starting with, well, the 7 of the 8 budget amendments under the business office have to do with transition between years. So the first one actually budgets funds for the Red Cross swimming program. So you'll see a revenue and an expense there for $25,000. The second one rolls the profit from the swimming, the public swim at the natatorium forward, so that the swim program can use those funds. The third one, actually, we allocate funds at the end of the prior fiscal year for starting up classrooms for the 15-16 year. And those allocations occur during the summer, and usually the purchase orders aren't developed and released until, say, August sometime. And at that point, they're not complete by the end of the month. So then we roll the POs and the funds forward, so that when the merchandise is received, we can then book the transactions, because we book transactions on a modified accrual basis, which means that we book as expenditures only those services that have been provided, or the goods that have actually been received by 8/31, which is our year end. So.
Okay, is this third budget amendment and the 6th budget amendment, are those all roll forward PO? We're on the third one, you said roll forward.
The $389,000, yes, it's a roll forward, and the fifth one, yes.
And the 6th budget change, you got at the very top, those were purchase orders that haven't been.
Yes, liquidated, yes.
Tell me what goes into classroom instruction where we have such large numbers that we're carrying over.
That could be a whole bunch of things. I can look at, Michelle's got our
Just give me
purchase order
some.
report, but it's usually instructional supplies and materials. It could be some purchase orders for consulting that's gonna actually occur after September 1st, but they engage the consultants in the previous fiscal year, like in August.
Why was the third budget change and the 6th one separated then, if both of those are purchase orders that haven't been completed?
Because we account for startup funds separately,
Just
so that
different
just
account,
identify, so
different
that we
bucket.
know, yes, yes.
Okay.
Because the startup funds are allocated for specific projects, and if the cost of those projects come in less, we actually take those funds back and then reallocate them at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay. Understand those buckets of money. How about the 5th one, where there were funds donated to the district? We've got that amount of funds that haven't been expended, and I keep hearing of teachers that are running short of supplies and paper, and we need a sidewalk between a couple of buildings, and, you know,
Well-
I constantly hearing crying for resources, and we got LEAF going out there and looking at 391 grants to help out the teachers, and we got $111,000 here.
Right.
Help me understand that.
Right, the funds are allocated through the items that you see, and, you know, donations that are less than $2,500 as well.
Right.
But they're donated for specific projects or things, and so then it's up to the campuses to generate those purchase orders.
Okay, so those donations would be item specific, and Okay.
Right, and it could be that that the purchase orders are actually in the system, but the items were not received by August 31st.
Okay, so
So that's why they're rolling forward.
So most of these are committed expenditures that
Yes.
haven't been,
All of them are.
okay. All right, they just. seems
Well,
like-
I say all of them are.
Most.
The donations, I have to say most are. But there are some that campuses haven't done their requisitions
So
for yet.
these are all committed funds that just haven't cleared the system.
Designated is probably a
Designated.
better,
Yeah,
better term.
Designated funds, all right. That's good, because these numbers are kind of puzzling to me.
Right, right. But of course, we've got records, of who donated how much and what it was for, and
Sure.
can follow up on those items.
No, that's fine. All I was trying to figure out if these are designated funds and, they designated or committed, and we just haven't cleared the system yet.
Yes.
So it's carryover accounting ones.
Yes.
All right. I'm happy.
I have some questions.
Okay.
Does anybody else?
On budget amendments?
Pardon?
Budget amendments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
On the first one, establishing the American Red Cross budget, is that something new?
No, that's a standard amendment that we make every year. And it's
Okay.
for the amount of money we anticipate receiving and the cost of the salaries for that program.
At one time, there was another program where they were raising funds, and it was used for the, any renovations at the natatorium, small amounts.
That's gonna be the very next one, $37,116.50.
Okay, and that's what I was questioning too. Is that go toward the fourth grade swimming program? Any of that money?
It can, yes.
It's not
But-
designated as such, it goes to general fund, right?
Okay.
I think typically in the past, I've seen diving boards replaced with that money, platforms, things like that too.
And that's separate from the Red Cross. The Red Cross is strictly their swimming
Right.
instructions, okay. I guess when I totaled everything up, we're talking almost between $2.5 and $3 million that was not spent last year.
Correct.
A lot of that was
And
under
that's
classroom
typical.
instructions. And we hear from different schools, different teachers, there's no money, there's no money. I'm having a hard time understanding why they're saying that if we have an abundance of nearly $2 million.
Remember, the bulk of this is actually committed already. The items just weren't received, or the goods weren't received, or the services were not provided by 8/31. So if there's a purchase order out there, then it's committed or designated. And so it's basically spent. It's just the transaction wasn't complete by the end of the fiscal year. So then we roll the purchase order so that we can have the funds to actually pay the bills when they come in September and October.
If our fiscal year hadn't ended, we wouldn't be seeing this.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
That's
Because they're not gonna bill us for any of these goods till they do the service, or we can get
Until
the
it hits
product, or.
yes,
That's
until it
good.
actually hits our door or the service.
But we don't wanna have to go into this year's money to get that when it was allotted
Exactly.
in last year's money.
Exactly.
But if
And
you're
I-
hearing, excuse me.
And I was gonna say, I would encourage you, when a teacher says that they don't have any funding, ask the question, have you approached your principal?
That's right.
Because at the
They're the
beginning
ones
of the
that-
school year, the funds are definitely there. Now, maybe toward the end of the school year, there may be some concerns, but most of what she's talking about now, those funds are there for paper and those types of things, but sometimes the principals don't just give it all out at one time. And you have to go and you have to ask for it. So that's what I would just suggest, because especially at this time of year, you all have seen the budgets that have fallen into place, and there are lots of those dollars that haven't been spent, and that doesn't have anything to do with the carryover at all. That's the new budget.
Will we get a new update once the fiscal year is over so that we can see the difference between today's amount and?
Yes, actually, at Finance Committee on Thursday, we're gonna do an update on the closing of 14-15 and where we are for 15-16.
Okay, thank you. I have another question. Everybody else does. The 8th budget change, I'm not trying to understand. We're taking money out of the classroom instruction, school leadership, and social work services to put into the maintenance and operations?
We're required to budget cellular service
Right.
under Function 51, which is plant maintenance and operations. But this is a consolidation of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different separate budget amendments. So, for instance, well, I don't, well, I actually do have them in front of me. But these phones are typically the administrator's phones, principals, APs, and the budgets were just not entered correctly. And so it's a cleanup amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
Some of it has to do with the fact that we just changed providers for cell service as well. And so they weren't sure how much they needed to budget. And so, again, it's cleanup.
I think I just need to have every time I see classroom instruction, money being taken
Right.
away, it bothers me.
Right.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Jill.
The next item on the agenda is consider ratification of financial and investment reports. And again, this is a report that the board sees every month, and that is updated. The next item on the agenda is consider approval of resolution proclaiming Parent Involvement Week, and we're asking that the board approve the resolution proclaiming November 16th through 20th as Parent Involvement Week in the school district.
Is that annual normally?
Yes.
That week?
The next item on the agenda is consider approval of donations to the district. And Human Act PTA is donating $31,410 to purchase a sunshade for outdoor classroom. The next item on the agenda is consider approval of an asbestos designated person. We're asking the board to approve Aaron Morgan as the asbestos designated person. He's our director of maintenance, and this is a requirement on the part of the state, the Texas Department of Health.
I have one question. Whose place did he take? Just.
Paul
Oh,
Guitar.
oh, okay, all right. Forgot about that dear man. Wow, all right, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is consider approval of material testing services supplement for the construction of the new Dean Lehman Junior High School. And we're asking the board to approve the supplement to the agreement with Terracon for materials testing in the amount of $15,000.
I have a question. Do we know specifically what materials are being tested under this? I know that under the original bond, there was a set amount that was specifically set aside for the testing of the materials. And this is in addition to, is it the same materials and now we're retesting because they've sat out too long?
No,
or-
no, no. This is continuous construction material testing, concrete, mortar, density testing. It's, and again, this is a little bit of a cleanup as well because the original PO for Terracon was issued in last year's budget. In addition to doing some testing at Lehman, we did some testing at the satellite transportation that we didn't have a PO for yet. And so in order to expedite, get that testing, But now that the fiscal year has closed, I can't go back and clean that up, so I've got to include it into the limit.
I understand. Is, okay. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is consider approval of CSP for Terry High School running track improvements. And we're asking that the board approve Hellas Construction Company in the amount of $192,650.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question on that. This said the project will be funded with 2003 bond available funds. Was this a bond-specific item in 2003, we're just now doing it, or was this additional leftover monies from the 2003 bond that we're now allocating to do this?
That is correct. It was part of available funds that were generated from the 03 bond. It was not on the original scope of
Okay.
work in the 03 bond.
Quick question, how much 03 bond money do we have left?
That would be a Joe Ludwig question.
I warned her before we came in, I'm gonna ask her.
Not very much.
I think we're about done.
We're just about,
This was actually designated, I'm making this face because I'm trying to remember back, but I believe that this item was on the agenda in May, possibly?
It was earlier, a couple months
Where
earlier.
y'all approved, the use of available funds to clear that out.
Correct.
Okay.
So it should all be gone now.
And if you remember last time, 2006, we just about cleared that out as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just looking for an extra
I was
money.
just trying to
want
think, was this the project that was on that?
I'm looking to build a sidewalk between Ryan and Reeves.
With a roof.
I don't care. All right, thank you.
the next item on the agenda is consider approval of CSP for the new Lamar CISD Elementary 24. And we're asking that the Board of Trustees approve Gamma Construction Company for in the amount of $18,541,396.
Question? Mine is fast. I don't know that I need all of you to answer it, but I noticed there's a Dramala construction and a Gamma construction, and are we specifically using Dramala at some projects and then Gamma, or are they two completely different entities in which they do two completely types of work?
Dramala is working for us currently. They're building Fulshire High School, and they built Arredondo under a CSP. Fulshire is a construction manager at risk project.
Mm-hmm.
This CSP, Dramala did not even submit a proposal on. So this is just a recommendation for Gamma Construction, which is a totally separate contract.
So, but they do similar scope of work as Dramala, is that correct? Are they similar companies? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yes, they're
Okay.
contractors.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Do we have any idea why Dramala did not submit a bid?
Just because it fell at a bad time for their company.
Okay, thank you. See, I told you I wouldn't need all of it.
We heard some stuff in the facilities team meeting about these post-proposal cost reductions. And apparently Gamma did a bunch of work to come up with a number of items to decrease the cost of this by $1.2 million. Well done. The other question I had, these two alternates, on this page, to me, they total $407,000 on the alternates under the Gamma, it's $454,000. What's the difference in those two numbers? The tab page here, the final recommendation, it says total of accepted alternates is $454,000. Under the page 57, it says the alternates are 170 and 237. That's 407. There's a $50,000, roughly $50,000 difference.
Well,
Well, you don't have to resolve it right now, but.
we know that we know that the 18,541,396 is the correct number.
Okay.
We can go back to the actual bid tabulation when we opened up their proposals and verify if one
Okay,
of those is
just,
off.
just be nice to have the numbers
One of those
correspond.
is off.
COMEX was not chosen. Their bid was lower, the initial bid here, total price plus alternatives by about $500,000, but they got dinged for their references. That's a pretty heavy ding. What kind of things kicked them out of?
Okay, it was very important that the contractor be able to illustrate past successful on-time completion.
Uh-huh.
And that was something that was very important to us. And when we contacted references across the board, we found that COMEX did not have as high a rating as Gamma or Duratec.
Okay.
And the other thing was, when we look at COMEX's experience, they had not completed a project this large. This would be the largest project that they had completed.
Okay.
And when we compare their available resources with Gamma's available resources and the others, it was considerably lower.
All right, good call, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is consider approval of architect contracts, and we're asking that the Board of Trustees approve PBK Architects for the design of Elementary 25 and allow the superintendent to begin negotiations.
I have a question, but I believe it's for Michelle, maybe not. Am I wrong, and I could be, did you say that you were changing the RFQ process, or not the process, but what's the word I'm looking for?
Are you talking about the criteria?
Yes, the criteria.
Okay, so we
Did
gave you the criteria for CSPs for when we do construction efforts. So the item that we just talked about for 24, all those bond projects have that criteria that you approved. With an RFQ, it's a little different, because remember, with an RFQ, we can't ask them how much they're gonna charge. So we can't include a dollar amount. So the RFQs have a different weighted criteria from a CSP. It's more based on merit and experience.
Okay. I guess I thought that at some point you said you were creating a template for.
There is an RFQ on the street right now.
Uh-huh.
I think we talked about it a little bit in the facilities committee. That is looking for new architects to create to create a ranking list for you guys to take a look at for other projects that will come up in the next.
But not including this one?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's what I wanted to know. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's
You're
all I wanted to
welcome.
know.
The next item on the agenda is that the board is the approval of architect contract, and we're asking the Board of Trustees to approve PBK to the design repair of Pink Elementary School and allow the superintendent to begin contract negotiations. This is the, to do those repairs to Pink and some of which is cosmetic as much as anything, so.
And this may be a question, maybe for Dr. Rand. Do we have an idea, and I think we saw it in one of the last agenda items, what was the amount or the approximate amount that we were spending on that Pink project? Does anybody know?
Right. It was a little over $1 million is
Okay.
what we had.
So we're looking at an extensive renovation. Okay, thank you.
And they're actually working on trying to reduce that number. By not having to do some of the initial scope of work, because they've gone in and determined that they may not have to do exactly what they originally talked about. So they've been working really, really hard on trying to make sure that comes in under that number.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is consider approval of utility easements for Elementary 24. And this is, we're just asking the board to approve that easement so that we can get utilities to the facility. The next item on the agenda is consider approval of material testing services for the new elementary 24. And we're asking the board to approve Terracon in the amount of $64,000. The next item on the agenda is to consider approval of audiovisual equipment and installation services. We're asking the board to approve the purchase of projectors, equipment, and installation services for Phase 4 of the refresh of district projectors in the amount of $699,700 from Troxel Communications.
Go ahead.
I have just a quick question. Have we used them before? No?
Yes, we have.
Yes, we have. Oh. And recently,
Yes.
are they just
Yeah,
continually?
they have, they were our vendor for the last projector refresh we did.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is that the Board of Trustees approve the 2015 and 16 appraisers who have recently become certified, and we have one individual that has taken care of their certification, and so now we're asking the board to approve it. Ms. Thomas Thompson. Madam Chairman, those are all the action items. And we will be happy to respond to any questions that the board may have regarding any of the information items.
Thank you. Are there any questions under the information items?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chairman, I have a question. I don't know if it's a question or a comment, so if you prefer, I may wait for information item naming new schools. I could wait until Thursday if you prefer.
If it is a comment, it needs to wait
It's
for
more of a
Thursday.
comment than
If
it is a question.
it could be asked tonight.
You can ask if it's a question.
Yeah, but, you said it's a comment?
It's more of a
It's more of a
comment.
Okay,
comment.
we'll do that Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
On the attendance boundary committee, I was reading, and I think we have a board member that's been assigned to that committee, and I found out that we cannot have a board member on that committee. Is that correct?
We've not assigned,
No, we have our own committee.
We have our own
Part of,
ABC committee. They're
But
on.
not that.
not this.
They're not on here. But we do have a committee that is,
Yes.
Melissa.
And so what I do is I don't sit in on those meetings.
No.
I
It's a
sat in
separate
at
board member.
the end when they had a recommendation for
Okay,
it.
so you're
Right.
not, okay.
yeah,
Right.
all right, because that's what I thought.
Wanted to clarify that.
She's correct.
Okay, she's
Mr.
correct,
Rockwood,
right.
I do have a question. Now that it's an elementary school, what type of community members are involved? Is it still the entire district?
No.
Okay.
So typically for an elementary school, it's only the impacted areas. It's somewhat in reverse when it's a high school, it could potentially impact
Sure.
everyone. For instance, with Adolphus, it was only the Foster secondary track, which was Wertheimer, Briscoe, and Foster, and then whatever Gold Track schools would potentially be pulled from. So we will get feedback from our demographer, but right now it looks like obviously this will only be a Gold Track school, so the feeder pattern would be the same as Adolphus, and then probably Huggins, Hubenack,
Actually,
Adolphus.
isn't a part of this going to be going to Fulshear?
Correct. So similar to how we dealt with Arredondo, Arredondo was part of the high school zoning committee. Currently, we only have Mr. Ward on staff, but we could have representatives from the
Okay.
Fulshear area